as I said, I was saying before that Gardner said there were multiple intelligences. We listed them out, and that kinesthetic was the most important. Kinesthetic awareness is your ability to know where your body is in space without seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a juggler who's looking up in the air, which is what you're supposed to do, watching the balls and then reaching out and grabbing them where they fall. There's a sense of kinesthetic awareness. Those people who wake up at night and reach over to the nightstand to grab the glass of water and spill it every night. Not great kinesthetic intelligence.
Even if the glass isn't exactly the same, you draw a line around or a circle around the glass.
And they could be, nuclear physicists, but that doesn't mean they have great kinesthetic awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was Gardner's point, is that we have different strengths. And so in this case, we have Dan Marino, who probably had terrific kinesthetic intelligence. He probably had a very good innate sense of what was going on in the field. And he probably couldn't even have told you exactly what he was looking at. He looked out there and he just saw it as a whole. This is where it's going to go. You'd almost say it's a sixth sense.
Yeah.
That the defense is going to move in this direction, and this is the play I'm going to call, or the audible, or whatever. Some guys don't have that. They're playing by a playbook. They're going by statistics.
Mm-hmm.
When they do this, 60% of the time, the next play is this. So that's the defense we're going to call. If that's the way you play, then you need a person who has that kind of intelligence. If you are, they need to be able to memorize the enormous amount of statistics. I think the best example of any athlete in all the sports combined who does this is a baseball catcher. They have memorized the statistics of every batter on the opposing team, their tendencies, and where, what they're going to do on any given count. Where they want to hit the ball in any given situation, depending if there's somebody at first and third, or second and third, or just at first. And then they are directing the pitcher based on those statistics. They are the coach of the team, the coach of the play. Right. There is nobody else including the quarterback, who actually, I think, memorizes as many individual numbers, statistics. So you have, quarterbacks who probably can load their brains up with enormous amounts of data and become on-field computers and see that Manning and Brady would be, I think, currently probably the two most famous. And then I think there are other guys, and there are plenty of other players as well, who are seat-of-their-pants players and are really good at it.
Roethlisberger, Favre.
Michael Vick.
Sure.
Yeah.
And not only quarterbacks, but other, there are players who run routes, and they are perfect, spot on. You could probably draw a little circle where their left foot is going to land every time they run X route and then turn to catch the ball. And their foot lands in that little circle every time.
Yeah.
There are other guys who are masters at, breaking plays and broken plays. That as soon as everything falls apart, that's the guy you want to look for, because they have a sense of how to get open and make it all work. The Wonderlic can't test either of those. It's not a test of memory. It's not necessarily a test of mental agility, looking at the complexity of questions or lack thereof that you read. And it certainly can't test kinesthetic sense. What does it test? I have no idea. I think in the long run, it's probably the most flawed part of the combine, if it's even considered technically part of the combine.
They did this year introduce another test to sort of coincide with the Wonderlic. Don't know what it's called. I've heard. All I know is that said test was administered at this year's combine. I don't know what they've called it. I don't know how it's set up. So I don't know what it's supposed to do that the Wonderlic doesn't.
So what I would do, I would
it's
give
better
them,
named than the Wonderlic. But
Tony, how many plays in a game, not in the playbook, but how many plays might you run in a game once you've scoped out your opposition?
Different, unique plays?
30, 40?
Yeah,
maybe.
I would say around that. I mean, you're running at the NFL level. If you're running a more stripped down, simple offense, it might be as low as 25.
Okay. So what I would like to do is, I'm sure there's some aspect when they get interviewed and the coach watches some tape with them, has them look at the tape and maybe analyze some video or whatever. But I would hand them a playbook. And say you've got a half an hour, and there's memorize as many plays in this book. They can group them. However they want to do it, they can organize them, but you have 30 minutes, and at the end of the 30 minutes, you're going to be tested. And then what you can do is call some of them Okay, here's the quarterback call. What's the play? Here it is here's video. We get everybody lines up what play is it. Explain what's going to happen in this play. If this happens, what's the first alternate, second alternate, what's the most common audible?
Yep.
Those are the things that I'd want to see. Now, if it's quarterback, you're probably going to have them reading defenses and say, what's your first best alternative? What's your second best alternative?
Yeah.
Which direction are you going to read your receivers?
Yeah.
What are you looking for here? And then when it comes to some of the other players, you might be looking at how quickly do they memorize an alternate version of play. So give them the book, 25 plays. Okay, at the end of the interview, give them another book and a new set of 25 plays, and then do one more test. How quickly can you dump those and pick up the new ones?
I love that.
So yeah, we were kind of just talking basically that there's probably not a real legit paper and pencil type of test that you can take that's going to measure what they're allegedly looking for: mental agility, thinking under pressure, that sort of thing. Other than probably making it game specific and memorize the plays, and then throw a curveball at them and say, all right, dump all that info and memorize a new set of 25 plays and go.
What I was about to say is that if you watch some of the interviews that they do leading up to the draft, Steve Mariucci has a great little segment that he does where he sits down with the quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And he diagrams a play up on a whiteboard and explains it to him as he's doing it, and then he erases the board and says, okay, now show me what I just did.
Yeah, sure.
Replicate.
Yeah.
Sure. No, I think that would be important. I think.
And it was very telling this year too, because I think it was Matt Barkley who just nailed it. Just went up and Geno Smith kind of stumbled through it a little bit.
Sure.
Yep.
And that's not surprising based on what most scouting reports have said about those two respective players.
Right.
And to go the other direction, I would like to see, basically, again, a set of film, have the two teams line up and give them a 2 count. Teams lined up, turn it off. What's the play? And just, can you scan the field? Can you see what's going on? Maybe I'd like to see for a defensive or an offensive lineman, just a guy, and he sets himself up in his stance. What's he going to do? Is he going left? Is he going right? I mean, I've been told there's all kinds of keys.
Yeah.
That if they're on their knuckles, if they're leaning back one way
for
or the other.
defensive backs, that's one of the things they'll look at is which foot is forward on the receiver. Are they down low or are they up high? Things like that.
So part of these things now, when the book says mental agility, that's mental agility.
Yeah.
He gets down in this stance, you say 1, 2, you turn off the television set, what's going on? Because now you have to be able to take all of that in and process it. Because you don't have long before that ball is in motion.
Right. And he has maybe 10 seconds to tell you what he sees.
Yeah, because as a defender, you are in a totally reactionary mode.
Right.
Well, depending, if you're a linebacker and you've had a blitz called, all right, now you're not reacting.
Now you're attacking.
The only thing you're reacting to is to snap the ball, but then you are totally an initiator. Whereas, if you're a defensive back, unless you're on that rare safety or corner blitz, you're totally reactionary to what's going on.
And so, that idea that you have a couple seconds to see it and only a few seconds to tell what's going on. Now, here's the question. Do you care if the guy can tell you why they got the right answer? If you say, he's going right, I'm going to set up this way so I can counter it. And the coach is going, yep, that's right.
There's something to be said for gut instinct.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking.
Some guys just have it.
So what's more important to you? Somebody who can analyze the opposition, which might make a great coach with the clipboard on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Or somebody who can react to it but not necessarily explain it.
I don't know.
Depends on the position, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for both styles. I mean, there are guys who have done it both ways who have been great.
I would probably want in today's NFL, particularly, I would probably want a quarterback and a receiver who is more of a thinker. And I'd probably want more of a running back, if I'm going to stay on the offensive side of the ball anyway. I'd probably want more of a running back who's a gut instinct. Yeah.
Although, there have been some very intelligent running backs who've done very well for themselves.
Sure.
I look at a Marshall Faulk.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back to today's NFL and because now running back isn't just a runner. A running back is
he's
also
a receiver and a
target.
blocker.
Yep. And so you've got to do all those things. But when it comes to carrying out his primary duty, running the football,
Right.
it's gut instinct.
That's where you want a Marshawn Lynch.
Well, yeah.
Dumb as a bag of hair, but just give him the ball. Let him
We're
go.
making all kinds of enemies today. But you want a running back who's like Maverick and Top Gun. If you think, you're dead.
Right.
You don't have time to think. Take the ball. Where's daylight? Go.
Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that Barry Sanders wasn't intelligent.
Right. But
Well,
Smart guy, but he had that instinct.
That was
Sure.
going to be my question. You said that Marshall Faulkner is intelligent, and I don't doubt that he is. Is that what got him through a game?
For Marshall Faulk, yes, I think it was. I think Barry Sanders had that same level of intelligence, but I think he played more from his gut.
yeah, I would say that. I mean, Falk obviously had tremendous physical and athletic abilities.
But I mean, he wrapped his head around that game.
But he was a pretty intellectual player.
He knew where he needed to go, and then he relied on his athleticism to get him there.
And that comes up again in other sports, that intelligence isn't necessarily. Now I'll make my enemy, but I think it's been a long running joke. Larry Bird was not necessarily the brightest guy on the court. Okay, when it comes to the standard everyday smarts, he's the hick from Indiana,
Right.
The hick from French Lick.
Right. Yeah.
Now, of course, he's also since then been a coach and a GM, so he's got to be at least relatively intelligent.
Sure.
But he always said that I didn't beat people through athleticism. He wasn't a bad athlete. That was the other running joke. He was the slow white guy. Which
Right.
was not true.
Yeah.
Right.
But he said, I know where I need to be before you know where I need to be.
Yeah.
And so he would just move to the correct position on the court and get the ball there before you could figure it out.
Wayne Gretzky, too. The famous line is that, he was a kid and he was sitting watching a hockey game with a diagram of a is it a court? I don't know what they call it.
The rink?
The rink,
The ice?
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't watch a lot of hockey. You can tell that. But, the famous story about
When
Gretzky.
Andre Agassi is
He's sitting with the diagram of the rink, and he's highlighting the area where the puck goes to the most. And his dad says, Wayne, what are you doing? He says, well, everybody else is trying to get where the puck is. I'm going to be where the puck is going.
right? Sure. Another example of that was Dennis Rodman, who said that he knew where the ball was going to bounce off the rim before it hit the rim.
Yeah.
That's why he was such a great rebounder.
Yeah.
So he had this gut. And I don't know that any of us would say that Dennis Rodman
was
is
particularly
necessarily
smart.
a brain surgeon.
I think he's smarter than people give him credit for.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Just
I'm
his
sure.
fashion sense alone.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. But, smarter than people give him credit for. But that's not saying a whole lot, unfortunately, for him, because a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
But, in the long run, what I'm trying to say is that his court smarts, just like some of these football players' smarts on the field, probably far outweigh their bookish smarts or their, supposed intellect.
Right.
And I would much rather have if I'm hiring football players, I want football smart people. I don't need somebody who's great at literature when I'm trying to design missiles. I need a rocket scientist, and I don't need my poet laureate, to be able to calculate trajectories. We each have our intelligence.
The line about why are there no great novels about space travel? Because we don't send authors into space, we send Marines.
Right. And so that's the whole idea is if you can ascertain the type of smarts you want from, and I think positionally is very important. Just like the psychologist who said he could tell you what position a guy played just by interviewing him, never even seeing him on the field. He said it's very, very specific that defensive linemen are one way and offensive linemen are another way. The defensive players tend to be loners because they generally are reactionary. They're working one-on-one. They tend not to hang out a lot. The wide receivers tend to be somewhat egotistical. They tend to have... but they need to because they're all on their own.
Well, and they compete with each other. They compete with each other. That's the other thing. Running backs are a little bit. We're a little bit that way, but we know that we're getting rotated. We know we're all going to get our touches. Receivers are really competing with each other,
and offensive linemen are a family.
Yeah.
said they tend to be very group oriented. They tend to be very cooperative. Defensive linemen generally never make good offensive linemen. They tend to not have that psychology. And offensive linemen rarely make good defensive linemen because you can't convert them very easily. Yeah. And the psychologists say that there's an innate position that they fill.
The physical skills might be there to be able to convert one to the other.
There's an attitude.
They say all the time, during the training camps that you'll have some of the wealthier offensive linemen will rent a trailer and everybody hangs out there. That's where they go after games. That's where they play video games together. Defensive linemen all go off on their own, or maybe in pairs. They have one or two close friends on the team, but they tend not to hang out as a group.
And that was one of the really interesting things I think about playing fullback was that you kind of belong everywhere and nowhere.
I was going to say
you hang with the running backs a little bit, you hang with the tight ends a little bit, and you hang with the offensive line, and you're like their goofy little brother.
So, and I'll try to get you the sports psychology book. It was absolutely fascinating, and it also talked about. This may be something that we may be done our interview now, end it, and continue our discussion, over dinner.
Yeah.
But they also get into the different levels of stress in sports, and that in some respects football is one of the least mentally stressful sports. And this is very interesting.
I don't know.
And what they show is that the more people that are on the field, the easier it is for a person personally to shunt the blame.
I don't know.
They say the most stressful sports are the sports where the team there's a team relying on points that are gained by somebody who's not competing against another person. So team gymnastics, they say these people have breakdowns all the time because they get out on the mat and it's them and the mat. There's no wind. There's no weather requirements. They win or lose on their own merit. There's nobody to blame. Divers, one of the highest stress sports out there.
See, now that's the funny thing, and we are going to get off topic here in a second, so I'll close down the interview here in a second, but just to be selfish and talk about myself for a second. I tried out for football. I only made it once, and that was freshman year in high school, and I think that was basically because the coach really couldn't cut anybody. I was just not physically, athletically meant to play the game. But what I didn't like about it was that everybody's got that alpha dog mentality, and I'm not that kind of person, and I don't react well to people getting in my face, screaming at me to try to motivate me. That gets me to shut down more than anything else.
That may have been your team. Mine was not like that.
But well, that's possible.
That may be a team culture thing.
But on the flip side, I was, if I can toot my own horn for a second, I was a decent swimmer in high school. And what I liked about it was once I hit the water, I was alone. Nobody else. I'm in the water. I can't even hear people cheering for me or yelling at me or one thing or the other. Once I hit the water, it's me in the water. Go and do the best that I can and get out. And again, the team environment was also, there wasn't that, we were on the team, my points counted, but there wasn't that, in your face, either positive or negative. That alpha dog mentality was not there.
Yeah, that's a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
And I think where you said with diving too, I think where the stress comes from with diving is, you're only going to get one shot at this. And there's those moments in football too, where, we got 2 seconds left on the clock. We're down by 4. We got to get a touchdown on this play. It's got to happen.
It does. But
that's where you start getting in your own head.
When you lose a game, we always pick a goat, especially it's usually something that happens in the last couple minutes. But you could probably come up with, my friends who are really into football will say you could probably come up with 20 other plays that could have decided that game. So when it comes right down to it, most football players who are successful and last can walk away from a game and say that while I screwed up, I'm not the only one who screwed up. There are 20 other plays that
And that's almost always the case. And they constantly talk about, like with cornerbacks in particular, people constantly talk about looking for mental toughness in a cornerback and looking for that ability to forget what happened the last play.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. Sooner or later, as a cornerback, you're going to get beat.
Pitchers.
For a completion, for a touchdown, whatever. And you've just got to be like, oh, well, that happened. Next.
And you're going to have that at every position, too. And you're a running back, you're going to have those games where you just feel like you're running into a brick wall on every play, and you're killing your body and getting nothing to show for it.
Right.
And,
you gotta just keep getting back up and getting back on the line.
The test that they did to show what I'm saying is that the more people you put on a team, the less people work less hard. What they actually showed.
Because they figure somebody else can cover up for their.
It's not figure, it's subconscious. They put a rope on a wall, and it's basically a force plate, and they told people to tug a war with the wall, hard as they could, and they measured the amount of force. Again, they'll make it easy numbers. If every guy on the team, there are 10 guys, and they each pull with 100 pounds of force. When you put all 10 of them on the rope, they never get to 1,000. And in fact, the more people you get on the rope, the further away from the actual number that they get. So 2 people get much closer to 200, then 3 people get to 300, then 4 get to 400. By the time you get to 10 people, they're only around like 750. They've dropped like 2.5 guys worth of effort because there's a subconscious thing here that we're all pulling our weight, and that you can let off of it. It's not conscious. It's just the way humans are. The more people on the team, the easier it is to let off because you can't ascertain perfect blame. And then what they said was that when you have a sport like yeah, then you have a I was gonna say the Ravens last year. And moving up the levels of stress is that the more people you have on a team and you have weather stuff. So you've got teams that play in a dome aren't as stressed out in some respects as people who play, or I should say, are more stressed out. Because if you can blame the weather, the wind, the field conditions, it was slippery, the ball was wet.
Yeah.
Those are all these things in the back of your mind that you can lay blame on and take some of the personal stress off. And say, geez, I did my best, but there are a lot of things against me.
Yes.
And as you move up, when you get into team sports or individual sports, an individual gymnast loses. Oh, it's me. I lost. It sucks. I spent 4 years trying to get here to the Olympics, and I lost. But if it's indoor track, and you're doing the relay, and one guy screws up, the whole team loses. Right. Talk about stress. You could be the reason that the team loses. There's nothing there. You can't. It's not wet. You don't run in the wet, right? You don't run in the wind.
Right,
There's no sandstorm coming through. I got something in my eye.
Yeah.
Right? It's all on you. And they said that people who have individual performances on a team that have no other, aspects, that is the most stressful thing in sports. Golf can say it was a bad lie. The wind blew. Different things happen. So, there's a couple things you can blame it on. Diving, swimming, team gymnastics. All 3 things where people are performing one-on-one, even wrestling. Wrestling is team. Your points go to the wrestling team. Yeah. But there's another guy, and he can beat you.
Yeah.
They know what happens. But when it's you in the water, it's a stiff piece of concrete that you jump off, and you hit the water, and you do it well or you don't. It's right. You screwed up or you didn't. Yeah. So when they got to basketball and football, the bigger the team got, the easier it was to spread the blame around. And the less difficulty successful athletes had in putting aside failures. If you can't put aside the failure, you're not going to last long. I can see that in any sport. So the last bit with that is, in my theory, is that people who can perform as if they're the only person on the court or on the field, those are your superstars. Mm-hmm. When you put an entire team of excellent players around you and you still perform as if you're the only guy out there that matters, not egotistically, but physically, you elevate. Yeah. It's the people who
you force everybody else to.
When people allow their subconscious to bring down the team, we've all heard of teams playing down to other teams.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And they won't tell you they're playing any less vigorously, but obviously they are. There are some classic teams that every year they barely squeak out against the sub 500 teams, and they kick butt against the successful.
Right.
That's subconscious. Nobody just says, put my feet up to you. These guys suck. We can beat them in our sleep. Nobody ever goes out there saying
you might think it,
but they do it.
Yeah.
And they play it. Yeah. I say that Michael Jordan, I'm more of a basketball guy, your Larry Birds and your Magic Johnsons, and probably your Tom Brady's and trying to think of Jerry Rice's. It didn't matter how good the team was around them or not. They were playing all out every play, every time. And that is what elevated them to superstardom, not necessarily their physical attributes.
I mean, all you got to look at with Tom Brady is how he takes, no-name receivers and just makes superstars out of them.
Yeah.
And then they go to another team and they suck again.
Yep.
Fall apart.
Yeah.
But you said Jerry Rice did not have necessarily great numbers in the combine,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously was phenomenal on the field.
Yeah.
Well, the combine might not have meant much to him. When it
Certainly
comes
a
out and he
possibility,
gets on the field, he's performing at his top level all the time.
Yeah.
And you could argue that the combine could be pretty stressful. If
Sure.
it's indoors, if it's in a dome,
Yeah.
and it's just you, it's you and your numbers, that could be more stressful
Pretty
than
much
any time
always
you ever.
in Indianapolis, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always been an Indy. I don't know that they've ever talked. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
always been an Indy.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
And I don't think there's ever been any talk.
Draft is always in New York.
Yeah, and they've never talked about moving it anywhere else. They have talked the combine. They have talked actually, and this is where we'll wrap up. But they have talked actually about moving the draft around.
I think they should.
Maybe
Just as a Patriots fan, so that I don't have to hear the Patriots just get booed every year.
I don't
Right,
think you'll
right.
ever have the combine outdoors.
Well, yeah.
No, probably not. But even just to
out
a
of New-
city,
just
and
get it
then
out of New
somewhere
York.
else.
You know?
Oh, you the draft.
Yeah, the draft. I think I think the conversation has been like move the draft to like this year it would be in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Last year it would have been
Whoever's got the number
last year it
one
would
pick.
have been in Indianapolis.
Okay, sure.
Whoever's got the number one pick.
Yeah, great.
So it's more of a local
great.
draw.
Yeah.
But all right, well, I think we've covered about it as well as we can cover it.
Cool.
Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
And see you again the next time I come around and do a video.